Dr. Aris sat perfectly still in the sterile, brightly lit conference room. The hum of the projector was a low thrum beneath his feet, and the air conditioning made the silence feel even colder. He was a renowned figure in stem cell research, a name whispered with both reverence and suspicion in scientific circles. Today, however, all eyes were on another man, Dr. Thorne, Aris's former mentor, who stood at the podium, his voice booming with practiced authority. Thorne, a titan in the field, was tearing apart Aris's life's work, his groundbreaking research on the 48-hour stem cell activation protocol, dismissing it as nothing more than pseudo-scientific fantasy during a live medical symposium. The room, packed with a global audience of medical professionals, hung on Thorne's every word. Thorne leaned into the microphone, his expression one of grave concern, though Aris knew it was a performance. "This reset protocol is a dangerous delusion," Thorne declared, his voice cutting through the hushed room. "It's a stain on legitimate scientific inquiry. Dr. Aris is jeopardizing patient trust with these unsubstantiated claims." He paused, letting his words hang in the air like a pronouncement from on high. "We cannot allow emotional appeals to overshadow rigorous, peer-reviewed science. This isn't just about theory, it's about the welfare of the public." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd, a mix of agreement and discomfort. Some nodded vigorously, others shifted uneasily in their seats, glancing towards Aris. Aris didn't flinch. He simply nodded slowly, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Not anger, not defeat, but something far more complex, a deep, unsettling calm. He reached for the glass of water on the table before him, his movements deliberate, unhurried, as if he were alone in his study. He took a slow, measured sip, his gaze remaining fixed on Thorne, who was now elaborating on the supposed flaws in Aris's methodology, painting a picture of reckless experimentation. The audience watched Aris, expecting a rebuttal, an outburst, anything but this quiet composure. But Aris offered nothing, just that unreadable glint in his eyes and the steady pulse at his temple. It was a silent acknowledgement of a coming storm, a promise unspoken. As Thorne continued his scathing critique, Aris's phone, resting face down beside his water glass, vibrated silently. He glanced down, his expression still impassive. A single anonymous message flashed on the screen, a brief string of words that made the unreadable flicker in his eyes deepen just for a second. "They're watching. Keep going." Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. That message on his phone was a jolt, a quiet confirmation that his fight was far from over. But to understand why Aris was so unshakable, why Thorne's words, though sharp, barely grazed him, one had to go back far before the sterile conference rooms and public condemnations. His journey into stem cell research hadn't begun with ambition, but with a quiet desperation, born in the dim light of his childhood home. Aris grew up in a small town, his early years marked by the slow, painful decline of his mother. She suffered from a debilitating chronic illness, one that slowly stole her energy, her mobility, and eventually, her vibrant spirit. Doctors offered diagnoses, treatments, but never a cure, never true relief. He watched medicine, for all its marvels, fail the person he loved most. This personal tragedy became the silent engine of his life. It wasn't about fame or accolades, it was about understanding why the body broke down and if it could truly mend itself. He started his scientific career in a small, underfunded lab, tucked away in a corner of a lesser-known university. While his peers chased grants for established research pathways, Aris was drawn to the fringes, to the whispers of cellular regeneration. He worked late nights, often fueled by stale coffee and a burning need to unlock the body's own healing potential. He saw stem cells not as a magic bullet, but as the fundamental building blocks of repair, a language the body already knew. His early experiments were simple, painstaking, focused on observing how these cells responded to various stimuli, how they communicated, how they could be coaxed into action. He referred to this process, to the idea of resetting cellular function, as the reset long before it became a controversial protocol. As his ideas began to solidify, so did the skepticism from the wider scientific community. His grant applications often came back with notes about unconventional methodology or lacking established precedent. He heard dismissive remarks in hallways, at poster sessions, about his approach being too radical, too far-fetched. Established peers, comfortable in their well-funded niches, saw his dive into activating dormant stem cells as bordering on pseudoscience. Dr. Thorne, his mentor at the time, initially saw promise in Aris's unconventional thinking. Thorne had even championed some of Aris's early papers. But as Aris's theories pushed further, challenging the pharmaceutical-centric model of medicine, Thorne began to distance himself. The shift was subtle at first. A missed meeting, a lukewarm recommendation, then outright criticism veiled as concern for Aris's career. These small betrayals accumulated, leaving cracks in Aris's trust. There was the time a preliminary finding, a small but significant breakthrough in his early activation experiments, was leaked. It was twisted, presented out of context, and used by a rival lab to cast doubt on his entire project, suggesting his results were anomalies, not discoveries. Then there was the colleague, once a confidant, who started subtly spreading rumors about Aris's mental stability, hinting that his intense focus on the reset was bordering on obsession, that he was losing touch with scientific reality. These whispers, these rejections, didn't break him. Instead, they pushed him further into independent research, making him more meticulous, more determined. He learned to trust his own data, his own instincts, even when the world around him doubted. The system had tried to push him out, but it only strengthened his resolve to prove them all wrong. He knew, with an unwavering certainty, that his mother's suffering, and the suffering of countless others, demanded nothing less. Facing the relentless pressure, and with his research funding almost gone, Dr. Aris made a choice that felt both desperate and inevitable. He decided to self-fund a small, carefully controlled pilot study operating entirely outside the usual academic and institutional channels. This wasn't a reckless move, it was a calculated risk, driven by an unwavering belief in his protocol and a deep-seated ethical responsibility to those who had no other hope. He recruited a handful of patients, all suffering from chronic, debilitating conditions similar to his mother's, individuals who had been told repeatedly that there was nothing more medicine could do for them. Each patient was fully informed, understood the experimental nature of the protocol, and gave their enthusiastic consent. During this intense period, Aris stumbled upon something far more disturbing than mere scientific skepticism. Digging through old archive documents and cross-referencing published papers, he uncovered subtle but undeniable evidence that Dr. Thorne's dismissal of his work wasn't just academic disagreement. Thorne had actively suppressed data from his own lab years ago, information that, while not directly proving Aris's protocol, indirectly supported the foundational theories of cellular rejuvenation. It seemed Thorne, deeply entrenched in the pharmaceutical establishment, feared the monumental disruption Aris's 48-hour stem cell activation protocol would cause. A simple, natural method for cellular repair threatened the very core of a multi-billion-dollar industry built on symptom management. This revelation solidified Aris's resolve. He wasn't just fighting for his research. He was fighting against a system that prioritized profit over true healing. The pilot study, the SHU, meticulously documented and overseen by an independent ethical review board he had painstakingly assembled, began to yield results that were nothing short of astonishing. Patients, once confined to wheelchairs or suffering from chronic pain and organ dysfunction, showed significant measurable improvements. Blood markers indicated cellular regeneration, damaged tissues began to repair, and chronic inflammatory responses subsided. The changes weren't cosmetic, they were profound, impacting fundamental biological processes. One patient, who had been on a waiting list for a kidney transplant for years, saw her kidney function improve to a point where the transplant was no longer necessary. Another, crippled by an autoimmune disease, was able to walk without assistance for the first time in a decade. The data, collected with rigorous scientific methodology and scrutinized by an unbiased panel of independent researchers, became irrefutable. When Aris presented his findings, Dr. Thorne's attempts to discredit them were met with a wall of overwhelming scientific evidence and patient testimonials. His past actions of data suppression, once a quiet secret, were brought to light by a whistleblower from his own former lab, leading to a public loss of credibility and severe professional repercussions. The scientific community, initially skeptical, was forced to confront the undeniable success of the reset. Dr. Aris's 48-hour stem cell activation protocol didn't become a magic cure-all, and he didn't become an overnight billionaire. Instead, it was recognized as a legitimate and incredibly promising new frontier in regenerative medicine. Aris, true to his original motivation, dedicated his life to refining the protocol and making it accessible to those who needed it most. He established a non-profit foundation, funded by ethical investors and philanthropists, to support further research and ensure patient access, particularly for underserved communities. He continued to face challenges, of course, but now from a position of respect and scientific validation. He found a quiet, profound satisfaction not in personal glory, but in seeing his work genuinely alleviate suffering, honoring the memory of his mother and the countless others he sought to help. The true reset was not just for the cells, but for the very landscape of possibility.